Amnesty International condemns any forms of violence against any individual, regardless of gender, sex, sexual orientation, religion, disability. We condemn any form of violence, period.
This is a continuation of our topic on the general human rights issues we have in the country. And I still have with me here Ghanaweb, who is the new country director of Amnesty International, to help us discuss these issues. So, Madam, welcome again.
Thank you.
So, please, we were talking about whether prisoners have a right at all. We've talked about their condition.
Yes.
I mean, where they've been kept. It's not something to talk about. It's really not good enough. But, I mean, do they even have the right to demand for a good living condition?
Yes. So, prisoners unfortunately cannot talk for themselves because, you know, they've committed a crime. They are in the prison. So Amnesty International and other organizations, other CSOs speak for prisoner rights. Everyone has a right, and unfortunately, whether you've committed a crime or not, for example, when you commit a crime, you have a right to defend yourself.
Definitely.
You have a right to defend yourself, and you have a right to be innocent until proven guilty. So once you go into prison, it doesn't mean your rights stop when you enter prison. You're a human being. I think that's the basics of amnesty. Once you're a human being, you have the right to dignity. Even as a prisoner, even dead people have rights. You know that. Like, you can't rape a corpse. Yes, so how much more a prisoner? I know they've committed offenses. Some have killed people. And now let's look at that, because not everybody is in prison for murder. Some are in for fraud. Maybe they stole. Somebody stole something. So embezzlement of funds. Somebody did theft. Maybe they stole a car, but without killing anyone, or you know. So we have to look at all those things. And sometimes these people do it out of desperation. I always keep talking about our system and our society. A lot of these people in jail come from poor backgrounds. This is the truth. And most of these people, I mean, you and I, maybe we're okay, we have jobs. Some of these people that go and rob, steal, they don't have jobs. It's not justifying the situation. I mean, nobody's justified to do that because it's a crime. However, think about it. Maybe if I was, maybe if I didn't have money and I needed to eat,
the same thing.
Maybe. You don't know. You don't know. So I've learned personally not to judge others, because I was not in their shoes. Some of them too went through some trauma, childhood trauma, and then it has had an effect on them, and they are also projecting it on somebody else. Some of them were abused when they were young, so they are also abusing other people. So some of these people need psychological attention, they need treatment, you know, things like that. So everyone has a right to dignity, a right to a fair process within the judicial system. And your rights don't end there. Even when you go to the States and other countries, prisoners are allowed to go to school. You go to school, you can get a degree, you know. So the same way,
but Ghana
prisoners
is different.
No, actually, some of the prisoners go to school, but it's within the prison system. Yes. But it's not as elaborate as outside, where some of them get degrees and masters. We are not there yet. So what I know right now that they do is they do a lot of skills development, farming, sewing, tailoring, those kind of things, yes.
But do you think it's also a human rights issue whereby the murderer, the convicted murderer, and the petty thief,
yes,
are all put in one prison? Do you think
they are not currently? They are not put in one prison. Those convicted of murder are in condemned cells, and then those that committed other offences are in the main prison population. But still, even that, I know what you're talking about, because even still that, there's no classification of the other. Exactly. Everybody is together. Exactly. And that is where we feel the non-custodial sentencing needs to happen. So that those that commit petty crimes can now have, community service for a couple of months or years and then be let off.
Being the new country director, can you shed light on some of the activities you plan to embark on?
Sure.
Looking at the things that I look at, when you go to your website, I see a number of things you want to do. So can you shed light on it?
Amnesty International Ghana, we do a lot of things. In terms of freedom of expression, we want to look at protests. Protests in Ghana has always been happening. And we want to look at the history of protests. We'll be releasing a documentary hopefully next year. And we want to look at protests and the impact of protests and how that helps Ghana's democracy. Protest is actually very healthy. And the process, if you want to have a protest in Ghana, what is the process of doing a protest and the consequences, and then what is the role of the security services like the police within protests in Ghana? As for having a right to protest, we have the right to protest.
We do, and it's enshrined in the Constitution.
Yes, it is. So we really want to look at that. So we are going to be training protest observers, because we have heard and we are aware that there's going to be a number of protests coming up because of our economic situation. People are unhappy in the country. So we're going to have a training for protest observers, and they will be observing protests and documenting protests to make sure that human rights aren't abused during protests, like what happened last time where 49 persons were taken away.
Just like that.
So, and they were not holding any lethal weapons or anything. So we're going to look at that. We're also still looking at gender equality and non-discrimination. Under that specifically, we're looking at sexual and gender-based violence. And believe it or not, we're also going to look at menstrual hygiene. Did you know that menstrual hygiene is a form of discrimination? Let me tell you why. Because if there's a little girl in a school somewhere that cannot afford sanitary pads, you have no idea how that impacts her life. She can't afford sanitary pads. She can't go to school when she's bleeding. She can't go to school. What does that mean? She's not getting her education. True. So what does she do? She falls into other sort of, bad company. And she gets pregnant. So it's a vicious cycle that happens. And it is a form of gender-based violence, having lack of sanitary pads. So we're going to look specifically at the import tax on pads in Ghana.
I was just about to ask a question on that.
we have actually, it's Honorable Sosu that is forming a coalition, and we are going to really have a serious dialogue whether we are taking off the tax completely or reducing it, and what else we are doing. Even currently, reusable pads. FDA and Ghana Standards Authority, they don't want to approve reusable pads. They've stated the reasons why, but we have to look deeper into the thing. Sanitary pads are not affordable. You know how much a pack of sanitary pads is? Like 20 cedis.
It is.
20 cedis. How many people can afford that? You don't even need one. You need 2 or 3 packs every month.
On your flow.
So, in fact, it is an abuse on women's human rights. You can't say, I'm basically paying to bleed.
To bleed,
Everyone needs the perfect snack to munch on during a fun moment. Wow. Enjoy the tasty McBerry Twist cupcakes, deliciously baked and packaged for a sweet treat. Premium quality cakes baked with love for all, enriched in butter and milk.
Yummy.
McBerry Twist cupcakes, simply irresistible. Try one today. This advert is FDA approved.
I am paying to bleed. So this is something that we're going to look at very cautiously, and we're going to really appeal to government to do something about the tax And we're also going to look at how we can help young women make their own pads, sanitary pads, or find cheaper means of, doing sanitary pads. There are all sorts of products. There are menstrual cups and all sorts of things. So we'll be promoting those kind of things, yes. And then, of course, we'll continue on death penalty because, although we've passed the bill, there's a lot of work to be done, public education. People need to understand why we've passed this bill and why it's important we keep it like that. We're not done. We are appealing to the president to commute the current persons on death row, their death sentences, to life imprisonment. That is also something the president has to look at.
If the bill has been passed, why would they go ahead to,
it's not retrospective.
Anyway.
Yes. So now, if someone is to commit a murder now, they'll get life imprisonment. But those who are already in jail, unfortunately, they don't benefit from that. So that's one thing we'll be working on. We'll also be looking at pushing Ghana to sign the second optional protocol on civil and political rights. So that specific protocol will allow Ghana to not go back and say, we are bringing back death sentence. Once we sign that protocol, there's no way we can go back to it. And that means that little portion on treason in the Constitution is null and void once we sign that optional protocol. So that's something we're working on as well. And then, of course, we'll be working on our prison conditions. Prison conditions is something that Amnesty has been working on for a long time. So we'll be doing that and working also on other marginalized groups. We'll be doing a lot of advocacy on that as well.
Okay. And lastly, I'll just go to this because it's on your website regarding the sexual and reproductive human rights. Okay, so Amnesty, I'm just reading out what it says. Amnesty is calling for governments to stop using criminal law to control people's sexuality and reproduction.
Yes.
People should be empowered to make their own decisions about their bodies, and they live their lives without interference from others. Governments should make sure that sexual and reproductive health services, education, and information are available and easy to access.
Yes.
Countries should prohibit all forms of discrimination and violence. In a country like Ghana, where same-sex marriage is forbidden, how would Amnesty International defend the rights of these individuals? Because this is a very serious issue, especially where they are trying to pass the bill. So because of my sexual right, my preference, I will be
jailed
for that.
So Amnesty International condemns any forms of violence against any individual, regardless of gender, sex, sexual orientation, religion, disability. We condemn any form of violence, period. And that includes violence towards our bodies. It's my body, my right. So when we talk about marginalized groups, we don't just talk about LGBT, we talk about women, we talk about children, we talk about persons with disability. So all those form part of marginalized groups. And the bill is currently in Parliament and they are going to do another reading.
We are told it's 80%. They are 80% true.
Yes, that is true. That is true. We are doing our best to advocate against the bill. We are against it. That one is not. Amnesty International is against the current state of the bill. It abuses several human rights. It even goes against our constitution, because our constitution protects the rights of all persons, and this bill is not really doing that. You talk about same-sex marriage. Our current marriage law is stated clear that it's between man and woman. So sometimes when you have a bill coming up and there are quite a lot of repetitive things in the bill. So you ask yourself why. Attorney General's office, STRAJ, many institutions have come out with memos because the bill goes round and then they ask, oh, what is your opinion? Can you? So everyone has, Amnesty International has also submitted their views on the bill as memo. We've submitted a memo. Straj has submitted something. Attorney General's office has also submitted. And everyone has shown that it definitely abuses human rights and it goes against our constitution. So for that mere fact, the bill should not be passed. However, it's in Parliament. Let's see how it goes. And then based on that, we'll also...
But once, if it's passed,
yes,
then I'm interested in what Amnesty International would do for such persons who find themselves in...
Yeah, so it's a discussion that we're currently having. We'll definitely need to re-strategize because guess what? The bill also implicates persons who... persons who are advocating for them. So we will have to see how best we can support them and how best we can advocate for their rights as well. Mind you, there are very specific things in the bill. It's, academics are implicated. You can't do any research. And I think people are not understanding the huge impact of this bill because these same people, it's going to hinder their access to health services. Now, if you are, homosexual and maybe you walk a certain way, or maybe you're not. Let me just say, you know what? Yes. What if I'm not homosexual, but I am a guy and I walk like a lady, or I have extra hips or something by hereditary or something? Am I going to be called gay or homosexual? Are people going to point me out? And is there going to be some form of mob action, like lynching and things? Because I feel like the bill currently in its form, it's promoting hate crime. Because people will point you out. The bill does not define who is a homosexual. So it could be anybody really. Like, it says when caught in the act. What act? Is it just a sexual act? So what if someone says they saw you having the sexual act? Where's the evidence?
And everyone will just attack.
Yes. So you see, I think we have to really think about the implications. These people normally have access to healthcare facilities. Now they'll even be afraid to come out. And if they are afraid to come out, how are they going to access healthcare? Something that Ghana is working on already, and we're trying to reduce, have better access to healthcare. Now this is going to be a huge issue. So I think we really have to sit down, take our time. Why are we in a rush to pass this bill? Let's have more discussions. And again, I always say, it's okay to have varying opinions. It's good. It's healthy to have varying opinions. But at the end of the day, how does your opinion impact another individual? And is it abusing the rights of another individual? I think people have to understand that. If you don't subscribe to homosexuality, that's okay. Nobody is telling you to subscribe to it. But at least at the end of the day, you need to respect somebody's rights to whatever is happening in their bedroom, so far as they are not hurting anybody. Yeah.
So thank you so much, Genevieve, for coming to educate us on some of these general human rights abuses Ghana has been experiencing and what Amnesty International wants to do to help us reduce some of these abuses. We are hoping that you will take it out, but it will take a while, just like you indicated. So thank you so much.
Thank you too.
And thank you for watching. This has been Legal Agenda and your regular host, Matilda Boateng.